right. Welcome back to another episode of Exit Liquidity. This is episode 77. Fun one this week, little crossover episode with 0xResearch, and we've got Boccaccio with us. I hope I'm saying that right.
That's
Thanks
perfect.
for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Fun stuff. Yeah, we've been mutuals for a while. I think we've interacted plenty of times on like either some of your work or my work on Twitter, or just like, I don't know, just yapping about something at one point or another for past year or so. So good to finally do a pod together. To start out, like, would love to hear a little bit about your background. We have chatted before, obviously, but not too much. It's always good to hear why you're here, kind of where you came from, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I got started 2021, like mid 2021, close to the top, but I didn't technically buy the top, but I did buy the top of some coins. And then I stuck around 2022, 2023. I started doing more and more research throughout that time, like actually serious stuff. Just looked at like, okay, these are down, why? And then yeah, and then stuck around and joined Blockworks Research, where I do 0xResearch as well as like other research stuff. That's really it. I feel like I don't have that interesting of a story. It's kind of like a basic background of class of what 2020, 2021, but that's really it.
I think that's
What
about
was
our
like
class too.
what was like the crypto pilling moment? What were you doing at the time? Were you working in like another industry?
I was, but I wasn't working in anything related to crypto. Actually my father told me about crypto, which I feel like is a rare thing to happen. And yeah, he was like, because it was COVID, he was like, "Yeah, look into this stuff." 2021, I would say like I bought the top of some coins, but before that, I was already like kind of I feel like people do this. They're like DCAing into ETH or something. Like a year before, like 6 months before they actually join. So I was doing that, and then like I think I don't know if I was like crypto pilled. I just thought like it was interesting, and then when I really started looking into it, that's when I got crypto pilled because there's so much stuff going on all the time, and I was at that stage where in COVID you were so bored, and you were like, I need to do something, and crypto was it.
Yeah.
What were some of like the first things that you wrote about? Because I really resonate with what you said of like, why is this going down? Except most of the stuff I bought in my portfolio, and so I was like panicking trying to figure out why most of it was going down. And that's like what enticed me to start actually learning about what was happening in the background of these things. Like, what were some of the first pieces? What things went down that you decided to research?
I think I'm looking back at it now. I found my old Substack, but I think the main like thing that I was, and I feel like this is such a like, if you're not like really in crypto for long, you get really like, that like learning curve chart where it's like this. I got really into fracks because I feel like that's what people get really into when they're like right at that stage. It's like, whoa, there's so much stuff going on. There's liquidity into FXS, and they're launching FPI, and like so much stuff happening. So that was one of the things. But I'm sure I wrote about other stuff. That's just the first thing that I could find that I published. I know I also did some stuff on option stuff, like delta neutral strategy vaults and stuff. I don't think I've ever used one in my life like since then.
And how did you like was it like a viral tweet or a viral piece that got the Blockworks guys' attention? How do you get connected there?
So I used to do these notes on podcasts and on videos, or like spaces. And I think that kind of got me through the door of a lot of like these chats where they're like, oh, like this guy wrote like really good notes on this. We should let him in, like, and so we can discuss like whatever alpha or just mostly like not alpha, but like whatever research notes you have because people hate listening to those like 2 hour podcasts. Um, like the really technical ones. And yeah, so that's how I got in. I think like just writing stuff also gets people's eyes. Like if you're spending time trying to make stuff look pretty and writing, like obviously spending effort trying to understand like mechanics and stuff, then people are like, oh, okay, like I want to chat to this guy.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty similar pipeline to what me and Cito had around the same time too. I think like definitely DCing into this stuff first before really understanding it. That was something that was like honestly, I got pretty lucky with that worked out the way it did because I only started paying attention because I started buying and it started going up, and I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit, like this is making me money. I should probably figure out what's going on. It's like if that didn't happen, I may have never actually like dug deeper. Um, but yeah, cool to hear that kind of similar pipelines there. Before we start yapping here, we have a little rite of passage. All of our guests we have on is before we can get into the episode, we got to get your exit liquidity story. So your most memorable time in the industry of being exit liquidity.
Yeah, full disclosure, they mentioned this to me accidentally beforehand, so I've been thinking about it over the past week or so. And honestly, like there's a lot, but also not any that's particularly memorable. I think the one that I wanted to say was Jewel and DFK. I feel like that was like later, so it was very like easy to get caught up in it and say, oh, like the market's actually not gone down, we can make it work if we believe enough. So I think it's the idea, but like in all honesty, my big problem isn't being exit liquidity, it's more so being like Mr. Fumble. Just selling something way too early is like my signature move, I think.
Yeah, that's a classic for sure. I think if we scroll through like mine and Cito's texts over the past like 15 months, there's probably like a good dozen, 2 dozen of one of us just saying like generational wealth fumbled again, where like we saw something at the right time. We're like, oh, this is cool. And then, by the time it took off or by the time we sold it, it was already too late. So that's definitely one that resonates.
I think it
Cool,
just
man.
comes with the turf though. Like if you're on Twitter every single day and you're like in the market, you're either gonna sell stuff way too early or way too late. I don't know, like cryptos just regret all the time, and then every once in a while you're like,
Yeah,
wow,
Yeah,
it really is
perpetual
all like
sadness.
psychological.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's I one of the things that I like learned pretty recently, actually, maybe in the last like 6 to 8 months, that kind of helped me like cope a little bit better was that like catching 60% of a move is a win, because even that is hard to do when you think about it. And it's like you have all these people posting about like 7, 8 figure wins and like perfectly like top ticking or bottom ticking. It's like that doesn't happen in real
Yeah.
life. You got to be realistic with your trades.
Yeah, especially like most people lose money, A.
Yeah.
And B, it's that just the like you said, just the ability to make like it's just getting so much more competitive now. It's really getting more and more competitive. Like more sophisticated people are entering the space. It's not also like asset selection actually matters, like picking winners. Before I feel like, or at least this is what I hear people say a lot. So maybe it's like just bias. Everybody's just repeating the same thing. But I've been thinking about it, and it's like last cycle, if you bought anything, it went up. Maybe like at least now it doesn't. It's not like that. Like you can be in coins that just don't that are negative, and it's because there's so many coins and so little attention and not enough money to go around.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a good question. Do you feel like things are like different this time around, or do you often think about like where we're at in the cycle, or like just kind of like if because it's weird this time around, right? Like we're at all-time highs. There's not that much retail interest. Like Iggy Azalea and like porn stars and everything are making meme coins. Like that feels super toppy in some ways, and in other ways it doesn't. So like it's really difficult to gauge where we're at, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree that it's very difficult to gauge where we're at. Technically, it should. The thing is that if we start saying this time is different, then it's super cycle all
Never
over
is.
again, and then I'm not doing I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. But it is really weird. Like things. The thing is that I feel like last cycle this also happened at like I like to think of it like every cycle like obviously gets bigger and then like more people stay, so it like also gets larger in that sense. Like even at the bear, it's
Hmm.
still larger than the last cycle.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's just natural. It's just gonna get sillier and sillier. Eventually, I think it'll be like a proper industry and a proper asset class. But
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
mean, let's hope so. I saw our buddy 563 sent me a tweet yesterday that kind of like helped like cope a little bit maybe. Basically the way it goes is um just given the way the cycles has gone so far, like this person's thoughts are that ETF flows essentially like warped the early cycle expectations, and the ridiculous soul rebound that was catalyzed by the FTX collapse kind of just like destroyed early expectations, because that brought on the meme coin hype, and everything that's happening right now, when like all this stuff seems like it could be like late cycle activities, when in reality it's just those two facts, the ETF combined with like the FTX collapse into the soul rebound. It makes things feel like late froth, when in reality, like, there's still not a lot of retail interest. We're still on the same kind of timeline that we have always been post having. So kind of helps like process that a little bit. But who knows? Really, who knows what's going on?
I mean, the best way to gauge this is just talk to your friends. But like not really close friends, like further out friends, and then if they because like for example last weekend I was talking to people and they were very much still like, oh, crypto's a scam, not like that, but you know how people get kind of like on their high horse. So I think that's like a good way to gauge. But I mean obviously like everybody's a bit gonna have some bias because they know you and they know that you're in crypto, so they're gonna be a bit like interested. But I mean, the FTX thing, I honestly did never thought of it, but that makes a lot of sense. The ETF, yeah, I think that kind of like pushed us up a bit. Like in general, just when price goes up, things get sillier, and prices went up earlier than they should have probably.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. My normie friend test group is on to me every time I reach out to them and ask them what they think. They're like, ah, shit, like here he is again using us as guinea pigs. So I think you're right. I need to go a little bit outside my friend group. Um, I like the idea. I like the idea Cito had last night, kind of just like taking a step back and seeing where we've been the last 6 months or so, because 6 months ago was the Bitcoin ETF approval, and that feels like a pretty like salient starting point. That was maybe January 13th, something like that. It was on our 1 year anniversary episode of Exit Liquidity. Um, what's happened since then? What was like the immediate? Do you guys remember like the immediate reaction post ETF?
It was people saying it's sell the news, and then we did
Hmm.
actually sell the news for some time, and
But then we
everybody
went
was
to
like, yeah. Then we're
yeah, we went to all time highs not long after, right?
yeah.
But like
Yeah.
in terms of when were people staking Tia? Like when
Oh
was that
my god,
happening?
that was earlier. I feel like that
That
was
was
like right after
earlier
the
than
airdrop.
ATF?
That
What was
was
that?
no, I guess that was. I mean, Tia launched in November, and it topped out in February. So I guess like it was maybe a little bit before that, but there was quite a bit of overlap.
The
Yeah,
top of yeah.
yeah, that phase was interesting. I think people are still like looking for a comeback from that kind of, what was it, like Celestia? What was in that group? I think you could throw like
Like
Say in
modularity
there.
bracket.
Yeah, like
Oh,
there's
oh
like
yeah,
a
like the
whole,
early cycle runners, say injective,
yes, injective.
bonk probably in there too, but not the same category at all. Just the same timing.
Yeah, I was curious what you think about like that category in general. Do you have like a bag of Tia staked? I mean, like, is there a
I hope
modularity
not.
thesis you believe in?
I do have a bag of Tia staked, but it's from before, and I forgot that it's 21 days to unbond. So I'm still. I start. I don't. I need to actually check if I bonded that. Modularity is kind of like it's an easy narrative to latch onto. I feel like it's like because it's what ETH is going for is like this world with 1,000 rollups. But I think like people aren't thinking about it practically. Like, can you imagine a world where there actually are 1,000 rollups and how much of a pain that would be? Like, just because I will want to at least try out, let's say, like 30% of them. That's 300 rollups. That's way too many rollups. You can't do 300 rollups. Like, it's even if like these are exaggerated numbers, but I mean, they're going out there and they're saying we want like a world with 1,000 rollups. Like, um, but I mean, Tia is like cool. They're not making a lot of money. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but they like it's dirt cheap to post data. So it's like as a business, I think it's at like one of the lowest PEs. It's just not a very good business, but it has such a like it just works so well. Like Solana's monolithic, okay, single chain. The exact opposite of that is Tia and modularity. It's like midwit bait plus like techy enough that it's like complicated, but also like not super complicated that people don't understand the thesis behind it.
Yeah, I've always, I mean, like I resonated with it, not enough to like buy Celestia. I looked at it from like a mid-curve level of like this industry or like this business model is going to trend to zero anyway. So like it's not really something I want to be involved in. But just like as a category, when there are so many altcoins, there are so many categories, there's so many narratives now, and I think that's the differentiation between last cycle and this cycle. Like, is there any value in looking at like I guess you can call them like old runners or like old narratives and waiting for a comeback in some sense or waiting for that like next evolution of the narrative itself? Do you stare at like governance forums or are you like, in the trenches of each community to kind of like decipher that? How do you like evaluate those?
I'll so with Tia, I'm gonna talk about so it's like free coins. It's Eigen, technically with Eigen DA, Celestia, and it's Avail. There's the others. Near is somewhat like they're really gunning for that now, but Near has that every 3 months where they're like, oh, this month we're doing AI. We're an AI coin now. So they did that with DA as well, but like those are so I don't know because modularity is like one of those pieces that will likely have like in my opinion it will have a comeback. I just don't really like these things are already in the 10 billions like FTV wise. What are you getting out of that? Like realistically. Um but with narratives and like trying to keep up with those, I feel like you kind of need confirmation. Like if something keeps coming back, then you can be like SocialFi. I feel like it's such a clear narrative. We had like 3 waves of it already. People keep remembering it. They're like, oh, there's SocialFi, and it might actually work out. And then they're like, we're buying Degen, we're buying Friend or something. Every 3 months it changes up. I feel like and like a lot of people are actually spending money to be on those apps. So I don't know, unless I see like some form of Celestia like interest again, I wouldn't be like trying to actively get into that market.
Yeah, and when you're like researching those, well, actually, maybe we should get a better idea of like what research you're currently doing or interested in. But in my mind, like if like how do you approach or how would you approach like researching that kind of sector to kind of like make a more informed decision for people that are kind of like noobs at this?
For data availability, like Celestia and
Uh,
stuff.
like you can just start from a narrative at like a high level. What like if you're like into the modular narrative, how deep do you get before you make a decision?
Okay, so I wrote actually a report on data availability a few months back. How did I approach that? I may basically just want to figure out who are like the big players that are not non-grifty, that aren't just trying to latch on. And then I like went through the docs, but really like what you want is dev, not dev calls, but like those panels that they do at ECC and stuff, where the devs are talking, because I feel like that's where they're actually like mentioning. For example, one thing about EigenDA is that they're like specifically positioning themselves for Ethereum rollups, versus like Celestia, which is more interested in rollups that are settling onto themselves, or it's like not necessarily settling to Ethereum, which is like two different types of rollups. There's sovereign rollups, and then there's a lot of different types. But like for this purpose, it's like smart contract rollups, Ethereum based, versus sovereign rollups, which is like their own thing. They have different. Their stack is like jumbled up. It's different. It doesn't settle on Ethereum. Yeah, so like that's one of their distinct things. And then you can start thinking about it like this. Okay, where do I see most rollups going? Do I think there will be more rollups than Ethereum, or like Ethereum-based rollups, or do I see like more rollups in general, sovereign rollups? Well, sovereign rollups rely on Sovereign Rollup SDK, which hasn't launched yet. Like it's a separate app that hasn't launched yet. But Ethereum rollups are also like Arbitrum and Optimism is never going to use EigenDA. They're just going to keep settling on. They're just going to keep posting data on Ethereum, and then Ethereum is going to have full danksharding in 2 years, meaning that data costs are lower. So you don't really even need EigenDA and Celestia in 2 years. So it's just thinking about stuff like this, like how they can position. But at the end of the day, it's all narrative based anyway. Like I think anybody who does research also knows this. Like there's very minuscule differences in how these products market themselves and like how they try and approach things. Like, but at the end of the day, Celestia had the most attention. It was Eigen wasn't out yet, but also like when all rollups that want some form of a narrative to latch onto are using you. I think the big one at the time was Avo, was like, oh, we're gonna use Celestia for our data availability. You're like, okay, like this is obviously the data availability coin that not just the market has through price action, but also like other products have chosen. So if I'm interested in that, I should just go with this.
Yeah, and you kind of touch on it a bit, but like there's this mysterious aspect of each narrative that's like hard to, I guess, quantify or research. Like people's value of like community that each narrative have. What kind of community does Celestia have? The community that Solana has. Like, is there like how much weight do you put into the community evaluation of a narrative or a specific protocol? And how do you like analyze some of that?
That's like with Ethereum, I think it's way too big to like. The thing is,
Yeah.
there was the whole ETH alignment meme where it was like, oh, like this is ETH aligned. And I think that's what EigenDA was going for. They were going for like being ETH aligned, which is like, I don't know if you can be ETH aligned if you are like if you're 60% VC, and like it just doesn't work very well. You can't be aligned with the trustless network and be like investor owned basically. How do you think about community? I honestly like it's so like the moment that you see those communities popping up, I feel like you got to take a step back and be like, okay, like is this cringe or is this like, are we having fun? ETH aligned was I think always cringe. Solana manlets was fun. I don't like at the beginning it was like, especially when I think it was like $25 or $30 Solana, and Ansem was bull posting it, and everybody hated Solana still, and everybody, yeah, Solana manlets, we're gonna keep going. That was fun. I don't know. I honestly I don't think about the community at all.
Yeah, I like that metric though. If the community is cringe or fun. Yeah. And then so like just well, I think we should just save some time here to start on this like ZK narrative. We were talking, Ali and I were talking to someone yesterday, and their whole interest laid out in crypto centered around like ZK and ZK tech. I mean, like their positions were, in all of that, so that was the reasoning. But I'm curious how you like evaluate something that's been talked about like that for so long. And Ellie's getting riled up as I say this, but like I feel like the technical blockers that limited ZK from actually working are pretty much over, or if not like very close to being over. Yet, people like there's nothing to do on most of these like ZK based chains, and they're not really that interesting. We'll start off with the airdrop, ZK Sync airdrop. From a high level, you know, what do you think about it? There's like some rumors about some like Cybil stuff that's happening. Um, are you gonna stake in or lock your ZK token for the rest of your life? Are you what are your thoughts there?
No more locking up. I think it was great. Like 18% is huge. I think it was 18%, right? Or like 17 and a half or something. That's a lot
Yeah.
of money they airdrop to people. Yeah, it's Sybil, obviously, but like I don't even know how you can filter out that. I mean, I hope that they filtered out the 60,000 wallet Sybils. Like, obviously, everybody's Sybils. Like, I'm sure you guys also have like at least 10, maybe not 10, but let's say 5 to 10 wallets that you attempted with. So that's like technically Sybiling, but I think it's fine to do that. I feel like the 60,000 is what you want to worry about, but those guys, I don't even know if like you can really catch them. You need like Nansen and Arkham to come together to figure them out. But I felt like their job was fine. I think like the next few will be really bad now. Scroll, Linnea, these are gonna get.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Usually, it's a very like obvious from a broad like game theory perspective. There's one really big airdrop, and then everybody comes expecting 5 more, expecting the next ones to be just as good. And it's like the roller coaster meme where it's like the biggest
Yeah.
loop and then small and then small. It's like that. Um, I think it was a great airdrop too. Like, I mean, great token distribution, like, or at least like pushing the envelope. 66% to community. I didn't read too much about like the assembly stuff, but like, I'm guessing it's some like Ponzi stuff that will reward users who are more active or reward users who lock or something like that. Um, from like an actual like ZK like tech perspective, and this kind of goes back to like what you guys were talking about with like evaluating these like modularity or like roll up narratives. I feel like I've become pretty like reductionist with infrastructure these days. Partially because it's advantageous for like focusing attention on the stuff that is actually like making money in a market like this. But also because like, I mean, all things considered, we're doing pretty well. I mean, for the demand we have, like, introducing blobs was huge. Like, I don't think there has been a time since that happened where we've really feel like we've been constrained with roll-ups. Solana is making good progress too. I mean, Firedancer's still far away, but like, having apps that frequently have dedicated validators and dedicated like their own dedicated pool of LST liquidity from Sanctum, like that makes things a lot better too. And it's like, and this kind of like goes to why I'm kind of anti ZK Sync is like we don't I don't think it's a hot take either. I think like we have good block space, like the teams have good roadmaps. They're gonna keep building those out. Let's just ship something people actually want to use. If that's more meme coin tools, fine. If it's SocialFi, whatever, like just try new stuff. That's like all I really want to see. And to see these apps who are like continuing to try and push the scalability of their block space when they don't even have demand for what they have as is. It's like come on guys, like really, you raised 500 mil and this is where we're at. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I saw and what I think is interesting. I don't want to be like super negative on ZK Sync, but I saw a tweet that was tracking some wallets that all made identical ETH deposits at the same time for like on the same day for the an insane amount of wallets. And I've heard rumors of other protocols who use, you know, insider airdrop information as a way to have employees be able to exit some of their allocation. So I've slowly stopped putting that much weight into this 17.5%, but it is cool to see. It is gonna make people happy. Um, but in terms of the tech and their strategy in general, what for I'm gonna assume that Boccaccio, you probably know a lot more about the tech and the research than we do. Is there something we're missing from this is gonna change the world aspect? Because everyone says they're going to change the world. Is ZK tech going to change the world?
I like ZK tech is cool, but one thing that I've been thinking about is that I'm not sure if tech is the difficult thing with layer 2s. I think it's liquidity and attention and volume, and fees and revenue and whatever attracts capital into your ecosystem is the most difficult bit. And that's I agree with you, Ali. It's you can launch whatever tech you want, but at the end of the day, if you're not building stuff that people are interested in, it doesn't really matter that much. And on the other, I have two things with the ZK sync. This was the same with Starknet. I think they're going to have guardrails when they initially launch, just like we didn't have proofs on, we still have centralized sequencers on Optimus and Arbitrum. So it's not going to even be the full ZK tech that everybody's oh, this is going to be the future. But the other thing is that, as far as I understand, this might genuinely be a dumb take, but as far as I understand, it's Arbitrum and I know Optimism is already working on ZK tech, and I'm sure that Arbitrum can adopt this as well. So the ZK proofs aren't necessarily, they're very expensive, and it's compared to fraud proofs, and they're more complicated. But you can just adopt that eventually. Focus on, you can't just bring in capital though. You can't just bring in users. So that's the more difficult thing. Long story short, I don't think the tech will change everything. I just feel they're kind of building for it to look cool, but it's not necessarily useful at this point.
It's what I don't understand, and I agree with that. I think, and this, I don't know if this is totally right, but I've been seeing a lot more announcements from these I guess you can call them protocols, where they're handling the ZK proving aspect as a service. I don't know if that's going to be a way that this tech gets adopted by a bunch of other protocols, without the need for something like ZK Sync. But from a general standpoint, well, I'm gonna ask: have you used or done anything on ZK Sync in the last 6 months, other than airdrop farming?
Yes, kind of.
What
I did.
Which protocols have you used?
I think I used Sync Swap. That's it.
That doesn't count. That's airdrop farming. That doesn't count.
I was interested.
You can't tell me you were doing something fun on Sync Swap.
No. The thing is that there's literally nothing to do on there. What am I gonna do on ZK Sync? I think the last time anybody was attracted to ZK Sync was Merlin. Do you guys know Merlin? Do you remember that?
Yeah, that rugged, right? We both got, I think I got rugged on it. I don't know about Cito, but I definitely did.
Yeah,
I don't remember that one.
That was the one where Digits posted a thread gassing it up, and he was he mentioned the vest for the team, which was like 35% at TGE and then 3-month vest. And he was like, "Oh, so the team is long term." And I was like, "Dude, what the hell are you talking about? That's not long term." And then we got into a little argument about it, and then they ended up rugging, obviously. So that, that was
what was it supposed to do?
It was a V33 Dex.
Yeah.
I think.
And then
right? Or no, it was either that or it was a Camelot fork, maybe. It was a Dex.
I think it was VE33. I think Velo Core launched after that as a VE33 as well.
and they got exploited
I mean,
too.
that was
Is there like any reason or justification you can think of for not having any good dApps for a year and then doing the token? Like, is there some strategy in that I'm just like not understanding?
I think it's like two things. First of all, I think like I haven't built anything. I'm not a developer, but as far as I understand, people have this sense that if you build it, they'll come. And I just don't think that's worked so far. Like the only people you really attract is mercenary. I actually really liked Kanto, the way that they approached it. They launched with some basic primitives. I don't know if you guys remember, but like they already had lending and DEX and stuff. And I
Yeah.
think Barachain will do something similar as well, where they'll launch with the like a bunch of stuff enshrined. They'll have their own like perp stuff. Why are we smiling?
Anytime,
Is the comments? There's some comments coming in.
anytime someone mentions Barachain, me and Ollie get flashbacks to internal arguments about what to do with what to do with our exposure, to say the least.
With your exposure.
with my
don't include me in this. I've been trying to convince Cito to sell his Bara NFTs for the better part of like, I don't know, 3 months now. But yeah.
You did also try and tell me to sell at 3 before. We talked about this like a million times on the episode. You were saying like the base level protocols. I mean, I disagree. I think like if you do build something actually good, people will come. Like the core, like if you build a core primitive and you think it's like a tad bit better than it is on another chain, yeah, that's not like, that doesn't fit in that category. But I think if you build something new and innovative and you have like baseline level marketing per se, I do think 9 times out of 10 people will come. But
yeah,
I would agree with that.
They're ganging up on me now, man. They invited me on the podcast.
I just think if you don't believe, it's kind of like, it's one of those things where like if you don't believe in it, it's kind of like a sad world. Like then because you're like not that many steps away from just being fully reductively like we're just all here for straight like farming and incentives, you know?
Are you saying that there's like no? Are you saying there was a protocol on ZK Sync that was good and just nobody came?
What I'm trying to say is this: is that like a lot of people will just build the tech and they won't do anything else. Like you'll have some basic form of marketing, you'll have some form of a points program, whatever. But there's no like Blast. Blast did this very well. Ignore Munchables, the $90 million rug. Apart from that, they did this very, very well, where they didn't launch anything enshrined, but they had an entire ecosystem designed very clearly, like from the very beginning. The I don't know what they're called, like the Big Bang program or something like that.
Yeah.
What was it? That like
the Big Bang. Yeah.
That structure worked out well. And like, okay, Blast is literally nothing special. Like it's a fork of I think it's a fork of Optimism or like the OP stack something. Nothing special, but they've managed to attract actual people. Like they gave them points initially, and then now you can actually do stuff. And I think they have the only they've had the only interesting protocols launched this year. They haven't done well, like a lot of them, but they're at least trying new stuff on that chain as opposed to like.
That's fair. That's fair.
Blast has a lot of good examples. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of like new, actually interesting protocols. But
they also like didn't do like they also kind of didn't follow through on some stuff. Like you said, it's you know just an op stack chain, but their whole thing at the beginning was like, oh, we have gas revenue and staking revenue, like native staking yield, and developers can do with that as they please. And you know, at the start, people were talking about that, and even Blast was saying like, if you use these features to create unique products, we'll like reward you more with golden points. And then people realized that like staking yield and gas revenue is like negligible Unless you're like unless you're a massive platform with a bunch of TVL and you let it accrue for a long period of time. And even then, like the best thing you can do is like giveaways and like jackpots and stuff like that. It's just not like as useful as they thought it would be. But they did still like do a great job generating that hype. Like they have fantasy, they have what else is on Blast?
They did it. They had a few games. They had Crypto Values, which did not do
Cambria.
very well.
They got an
I've
NFT
seen
perp.
people say that
That's
Cambria game
unique.
is fun. Yeah.
I mean, anywhere but base. I feel like it's base Blast. I'm ignoring Solana and stuff now, but just like let's only talk rollups. It's just base and Blast. Is there anything else? Like Arbitrum dominated for 2 years, 3 years, and then now it's like, what's the last time
They just
you
fumbled.
DMT?
I haven't
Sanko
used
Game
Arbitrum.
Corp, only one.
Yeah.
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 That's
really
about
the only
it.
one.
Besides that, it's just mismanagement, misuse of funds, and just not like they just like got too comfortable in their lead. And they're like, DeFi is gonna be the thing, and we're just gonna DeFi and gaming, and like no one cares about that stuff these days.
So in conclusion, there's no reason, no strategy, no justification to not have a single interesting DApp on a chain that you raised 500 million for.
They should have done something, obviously, but I feel like the reason that I say that you should launch with some apps is because if you launch with the base primitives, people can't just come on and be like, oh, we're gonna launch like Sync Swap. Sync Swap shouldn't exist, realistically. Like it's not like the VE free model at least has some form of like Ponzi-nomic emission style where it's like differentiated, but Sync Swap doesn't have that. It's literally just a regular Uniswap V2 fork or V3 fork. So like if you provide these then and you do some form of like an incentive program for developers or like Blast did where you go all out, you should have some apps that aren't like just basic stuff, but they don't do it because I think they build it. Our tech is superior. We built it. They'll come. Nobody.
But
like,
I've heard that you like it's impossible to actually build on the chain. Like it's a terrible developer experience. Like
So they didn't even take that approach because they didn't even build it. They just
I
skipped
honestly,
straight
like,
to the
truly
they'll
just
come
don't
part.
understand it. Yeah, like I truly don't understand it. I mean, I'm gonna take the small airdrop I received and I'll be happy about it. But
I think a really interesting like niche case study like with regards to ecosystem development that we're going to see hopefully soon. I don't know when their launch is, but Nimble is launching on Say V2. And that decision was baffling to me when they made it because it was at the time when no one had any reason to believe that Say V2 was like the place to be building, even now, I still don't think that's anywhere near a popular opinion or anything close to that. But Nimble, like before they announced that, they were seen as a very promising project. It's like an AI execution platform, good backers, strong team, the whole 9 yards that you look for when looking at early AI projects, like the whole like ritual IONET type hype, but maybe on a little bit of a smaller scale. And they chose to launch on Say. And I don't think that decision was technologically driven. I think that there's some stuff that went on behind the curtains that we didn't see that got them to go and build over there. And if like that works out well, yeah, I mean, yeah, probably realistically, they probably gave them a lot of money. But like, if that's all it takes, like, I don't know. I struggle to believe that there is a valid reason for why chains that raise so much money can't get an act like a single. I don't even want to say unique app, just a single non-forked app, because that's how low the bar is.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I think like there is. Yeah, it's almost like inexcusable. I don't know. I'm just like baffled by it because on the other side of the scale, it's like announce every single partnership with Starbucks and everything like Polygon did, and just never actually go through with anything. But I was a ZK Sync, supporter in some senses. I believed in kind of like the evolution of the technology, and now got nothing to show for it except for like a little bit of an airdrop. Is there any other place that we should or people should look towards for actual development in ZK tech? Maybe not like another chain, maybe it's like some kind of other, like the whole ZK prover stuff, I think succinct, that allows for some of
I
that.
feel like we've spent a ton of time talking about ZK stuff. Like
Yeah,
I
way
kind of
too
wanted to
much.
get to some of the base stuff.
Yeah,
I know Bach spent some time on base. I wanted to like, I don't mean to cut you off, but like we got 14 minutes here.
Go.
I'd be curious. Yeah, I know you mentioned like base ecosystem stuff. I don't really spend that much time there. Like I own some friend pet. I had some meme coins. Is there anything interesting you're doing or watching over there?
I feel like Base is the only chain like roll up at this point that has something apart from DeFi that people actually use. Friend Tech, I know people don't use that much, but as well as like Farcaster. I feel like Farcaster, now I saw a chart this morning and I was like, oh, I gotta bring this up on exit liquidity. Like I'm gonna say I'm bullish SocialFi, and then the chart is basically just like it's a double top on active users and it's at 0. Like it's all the way down. But I don't know. Like they had such a good run. I mean, I don't know anybody else who's done well with SocialFi, and I'm like a firm believer that it'll be a decent narrative throughout the cycle. I just feel like it keeps coming back. But my main thing was that I actually asked this to a couple people last week, but I don't know what base beta is. I don't think they're gonna launch a coin. This is what like I was told. There won't be a base token. But I've been trying to think of like what the base beta would be, and it's either degen, arrow, or friend. And I feel like it's degen, but
What is
I'm not sure. I
Arrow?
want to arrow drum.
Oh, Aerodrome. Okay, yeah. You don't think it could be like a leading meme coin?
No, like, because okay, picture this. It's 6 months later. Everything's looking great. We're not stumbling around 70K anymore. Life is good. Base ecosystem is popping, but there's no base token. What do you think? Where do you think attention goes? So, like, what do you think people are like? Oh, I'm gonna buy this.
It's a great question.
I mean, like if you subscribe to the belief that one of Base's competitive edges is the whole smart wallet thing and onboarding directly from Coinbase, then I think the argument for like one meme coin, and I know you said you don't want to talk too much about meme coins, so we don't have to get, because we're all sick of it, let's be honest. But like if that's part of if that's part of your thesis, then you have to imagine that the average user is going to be more likely to go and buy something like I don't even know what meme coins are on Base, but some Base meme coin over a Velodrome fork. Maybe Friend Pet. Friend Pet's pretty like that. That's pretty normally friendly.
I was gonna say that.
Degen's like, I feel like there's too many like meta games there, and that was kind of what was the issue with Farcaster. I think is they did well because they were around for so long, like so much longer than people realized. There was a community on there. And it was just kind of stewing. Like people were still having conversations on there. Equilibrium like doesn't have any socials except for on Farcaster. There's stuff like that going on. But like when it started to gain attention, it couldn't sustain it because it kind of just felt like a lifeless social network. Like it didn't feel like it had the same culture that CT did. It had something, but it wasn't like magnetic in the way that crypto Twitter is. So that one, and then like I don't even fully understand what degen is or why it is relative to Farcaster. So that, to me, I feel like that is a stretch, but I could just be missing stuff. I don't know.
I feel like degen is, yeah. It's been two things. Like yes, Farcaster has been around for really long, and the early days was so much I feel like I'm not sure if it was better or worse, because initially it was just like ETH devs talking random stuff and like people posting about Web3 changing the world. A lot of VC talk, and then it got a little bit better. But I feel like DGen kind of ruined Farcaster, but it also like Farcaster never would have become as popular as it did if DGen wasn't there, because now it's like people begging for DGen tips. DGen's a tipping system for Farcaster, just in case people weren't aware, is you tip people with DGen. So if Ali makes a nice post, I can be like, hey, Ali, here's 100 DGen for you. And that's how it works. And you get a daily allocation. Obviously, like people who want to farm this can just go and farm it, and it made the experience like really bad, but also it would have never been that popular if people weren't giving out like 10 grand tips to each other. Yeah.
Interesting.
I never
Okay.
liked the Farcaster community, to be honest. I thought it was always like really dumb, and then I saw the. Actually, I'm not even gonna get into that. I honestly, as we say it out loud, the more I kind of think it's going to be friend pet or some GameFi thing. I usually hate GameFi, but I think if you're Coinbase, you are really interested in having something that'll show off like basic user metrics. And so if you get like a very simple game that runs, like on base, that can work on mobile, it's in their best interest to start like talking about that very, very often. So I think it could be friend pet. But I also think there's room for like a better game. That game is like fun, but it's a lot less fun than I thought it was when you
It's not
actually
that
play
fun. I'll be
it.
honest. Yeah, it's bag bias. It's not even bag bias because I know it's not fun. I just have a bag. It's just like it's long and like it's hard to progress early on. It's I don't know. I don't think it's that fun, but like it's there. It's there. It's familiar. It's nostalgic.
Any other games on base?
They have Pixochi, which is a friend pet fork. It's like polished up a bit. There's ETHXY, which is backed by A16Z. It's not fun as well. I think it's like one of those A16Z games where they had like money lying around and they were like, okay, like let's put some money into GameFi, I guess, and they just chucked it around to like 150 projects. I don't know if they're like particularly interested in ETHXY. Their ticker is sexy as well, so it's a bit of a silly one.
What is it? XY?
I forgot about that.
ETHXY is the game.
That's the grid thing, right? Where you can buy grids and they like multiply, or am I thinking of something else?
I think you're thinking of something else.
XY.
FriendPet
I don't
got
think I played this.
integrated into the smart wallet, which is good. It's good news for you guys' bags, but I don't know if that's old news. I think it might be last week. But no,
Interesting. Yeah,
games
I
are
mean, I think
generally.
I don't
could
know
be-
this one.
Yeah, it could be a game. I just don't think it's gonna be DeFi.
DeFi is a bear market narrative. I'm fully convinced of that now. It's never. I mean, it's gonna have like times where it does well, obviously, but for people like me who are not smart enough to rotate on like a week or even like a month's notice and still be profitable, like I just wouldn't be holding DeFi. It's like when DeFi is like what you grab like post FTX collapse when GLP is paying out like 30%, 40%, whatever, and like fundamentals actually matter. But we've crossed that line a long time ago.
It's tough though, because there are some like things that are like hyper liquid. I feel like will be an interesting one. That's DeFi. Sanctum, I feel like it's going to be interesting. It's launching at like 50 mil FTV on Jupiter. So
yeah, that's
like
crazy.
Shout out to those guys.
Yeah. But I agree. Like DeFi is. I'm not sure if DeFi is bear market narrative. I just think we haven't had enough apps. Like people don't want to launch apps. It's all about let's launch a ZKL2, let's launch some data availability thing, let's launch another roll up. Infrastructure just pay the incentives are so good for a developer. Like if you're a dev, it's like why would I launch an app? Yeah.
That's a fair take. I guess we haven't seen much DeFi innovation in the past year or so. In fairness, DeFi is also super competitive. Like it's pretty hard to be like, I'm going to go out there and build a perp dex and then proceed to compete with the same attention that Hyperliquid has or GMX once had or obviously Uniswap. Like if you're Spot, then just very, very, very difficult to get attention there. So I guess the odds are kind of stacked against them. Which sucks because I don't know. Me and Cito love DeFi. You seem like the type of person who was pretty DeFi heavy at one point too.
I love DeFi.
All researchers at one point or another, like
we all thought Frax was the future.
Yeah, like, well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I love DeFi. Like, it's why I'm here. It's why like it's what kept me going.
Infrastructure is not as fun. Because at most you can like, I don't know. There's just isn't that much to do. At the end of the day, you feel like you're getting shafted a bit because like anytime you long something or like you're longing something that's 15 bill FTV, what am I gonna do there? Oh, yeah. I don't know.
You got a question here, Bach, from someone named Aiden. Are you still bullish on the Cream team? Whoa. What does that mean?
Is
that the is that the Phantom thing?
No, I think he's talking about we
Cream
should
finance?
just not go into this. Yeah, I think he is. I think he's talking about not Cream Finance, Fold. No, what did they do to get that's what it is.
Machi's project. Machi's project.
I am not bullish on Manifold Machi at all. He's like steady dumping friend now. He owned 10% of that coin at some point, which is ridiculous.
Is he able to like exit?
I don't know if he's exiting.
Like, has he started or?
I think he's sold quite a bit now, but I don't know. That's
and they're gonna launch their own chain, no? Or was that a joke? Can't trust that intern on that account.
No, I think it's real. I don't know why. It'll be fun for them for a few weeks. We'll see. That's kind of like, I feel like V2 was quite good. I don't know if you guys are big Frontech people.
I
not
had
really.
Some bags. No. Thought it was gonna go.
Cito tried to trade it.
$5. Never did.
I
got out. In the green. It was nice.
I could never get past the 20% fees. That was my thing.
Ollie was so angry about the 20% fees.
I was not angry about it. I was just like, how can you trust
Racer?
Like, everyone's like, oh, they're so generous. They're giving away 100% of their token. It's like, yeah, because they already farmed more than the total of their TBL and fees. Like, what do you? It's like they buy back some friend and give it away. Oh, it's coming out of their own pockets. It's like, no, it's not. It's coming out of yours. It's baffling to me.
They made like 40 mil or something, or more.
I think like a couple weeks in, they surpassed their TVL even when they were like quite hyped up. And during V1, it was. I'm looking at no, it took a little bit longer than that. They farmed a total of 65 mil in fees, and they have less than 10 mil in TVL.
Ignoring that Racer farmed us to death, that was at least semi-fun.
Racer is hilarious. I will give him that. Yeah. One of the funniest guys on Twitter. He's so funny. Besides that, I'll keep following him. I would love to have him on the pod someday just to yap, but like I wouldn't be using that product myself. We're at time here. I don't want to keep anybody too long. I know everybody's got a busy day, I'm sure. Boccaccio, thanks for joining us, man. This was a lot of fun. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for
you
having.
taking the time. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Got to do it again sometime after the next big airdrop that we can FUD. We'll hop on here and start arguing. Perfect. That was Exit Liquidity, episode 77. Thanks, guys.